What is going on, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the NBA Fantasy Strategy Show here at FTN. My name is Zac Graham, aka Kawaisenberg DFS, joined today by my good buddy from the Team Hold NFT stream. It is Mike Zakarian. Mike, how you doing, buddy?
Good, man. It's good. I think, is this my first time on with you on your? I know you've come on Team Hold quite a bit, but is this my first appearance over here?
I think so. So, Mike, welcome to the FTN universe over here.
It's an honor, man. It's an honor. Thanks for having me on. I'm just excited to draft. These are finally, I don't know how you have felt, but the double dribble is finally starting to pick up some momentum, and these things are filling instead of waiting for an hour at a time.
Yep. Yeah, it's been fast and furious. I think for both of us, we caught each other in a draft in the midweek just randomly around lunchtime. So, and I think this tournament up to about 36-37% full now with less than 3 weeks to opening night. So we'll see. I think this does probably fill in the last couple of days before the season. But still plenty of space. So everybody, if you want to saddle up over with us at Underdog Fantasy, you can use promo code FTN. If for some reason you haven't signed up over there at UD, promo code FTN will get you a 100% deposit match up to $100. And I do want to talk a little bit more about what you guys have going on over there at Team Hold. We're actually going to do another draft in about 2 hours over on the Team Hold channel. So we'll get into all of that, everybody. But the first thing, good to see Mark in here. And of course, our boy JJ in here. I see UNC also. We'll go ahead and share this. Mike and I are sitting in the double dribble draft that is waiting to fill as we speak. There are 6 spots here, everybody. So I know our buddy Mark actually out. He has to travel to a legal jurisdiction to load up on slow draft. So Mark, if you're traveling for work today, I imagine you'll join us. If not, we appreciate you being along for the ride, UNC. Good to, and Mike, I'll warn you right now. A couple of these drafts, I have been sandwiched by some of our FTN subscribers and our friends out there in the YouTube universe. And it's been frustrating at times, man. I don't know if again, we haven't done a draft yet together on stream this season. I know when we do them on the Team Hold stream, those can be tough rooms as well. Have you been finding similar frustration drafting with your buddies at Team Hold?
Yeah, I don't even know if it's like strategy or if they're just like, oh, let's watch Mike get pissed off in front of all of us. And that, I think that has been how they've been attacking it lately. Yeah. It's like the second I talk, I've actually stopped. Like we get like 5 picks before it's my turn and I don't say anything. I'm like, we're just gonna sit in silence here until I make this next pick.
Yeah, I had Mike Randall. So it's been a season of Mike's here. Our chief content officer here at FTN. He was on last Friday. And same kind of thing where we were like, we wanted to talk about our thoughts leading up to some of the picks, but started to hold off as we were very clearly getting sniped by some viewers.
How many drafts in are you now on Underdog?
That is a good question. I know I was at 80 last time I checked. Let me get a little refresh here. I've been ripping since day one. And our buddy Chris in here, who his screen name's UNC, so that's why I referred to him as UNC. We've been in there, I think, since day one. And man, some of the ADPs are or have shifted wildly. So it's been fun to be in kind of, for lack of a better term, on the ground floor with this double dribble tournament and kind of see how the field has sharpened up in some areas. And then I think still maybe lagging behind in others. What about you? What's your number at right now?
So I think this will be my 55th, I think. Okay. Oh, there we go. We filled. I was in Ireland the last 10 days or last week. And so that really slowed things down. But I did notice, like, once I got back, it did pick up a little bit. Where are you at here? Where are you drafting?
I'm 6 here. I see Dink in here at the 8. I see UNC at the 10. So you're at the 11. You and UNC are going to have a little battle here. So good luck to you, sir.
There we go. I'm seeing UNC only has 12 left on Underdog too. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm hoping. I feel like I'm probably not going to get to 150, but I'm gonna see what I can do. What are some of like the biggest ADP movers you've seen?
Well, one, and this has been a recurring theme for me because he is my highest owned player right now in these underdog drafts is Mark Williams. You could get him at like 135, 140 to start draft season, and now right around, I think 100, 105, somewhere in there, which I still think is a slight value, given the importance we put on put on the big position. I guess others, the one that I've seen yo-yo the most is we're underway here. Some Olsen taking Jokic and then Luka going number 2. So PK Riff getting us started. I guess deviating from the chalk rather with that second pick. The one that I have seen yo-yo the most is Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah.
And of course I'm going to, we can't even get 10 minutes into the stream before I bring up Wemby. But he started out around 30, got up into the high teens. Like I saw an ADP, I think early September of like 18, 19 for him.
That's crazy.
And now, I agree. Now settling kind of back in the mid 20s here. And I think still falling as we get closer to the season, which I think in my rankings right now, I have him at 26. So that is right where his ADP is currently. And yeah, man, with Wemby specifically, and we can try to leave the Wemby discussion in the past after this. I just think where we are drafting him, and I have like 10% right now because I've kind of bought into the hype media day. Okay, I'll take some Wemby shares.
Yeah.
As I'm on the clock here, and this is going to be a very easy SGA. I'll just take that chalk at the 6. We have to see, I think, the ceiling outcome for Wembanyama, where we're taking him in drafts right now. So that's why I'm not too high on him, but again, getting some more shares. And I think it sounds like you're kind of in the same boat when it comes to, the freak that is now down in San Antonio.
Yeah, I really like him. I really like him a lot, and I want more exposure to him. I don't love the mid 20 spot.
Yeah.
I like if it slips down closer to 30, I get more excited. I just again, there's so much hype around him, but I am just nervous how they're going to use him. Like I feel like they're not trying to put the foot down on the gas yet. And so that's why when he was going like 19, I'm like, what are we doing? Like this is, I wanted to ask you, so Anthony Edwards is going like 7.
Yeah.
Where are you on that? Cause I'm looking at the guys going behind him. Like, I feel like I'm taking Sabonis, AD, and honestly, even Halliburton before Ant there.
Yeah, he is. I don't think probably. I think he is the guy in kind of the top 15-ish range of ADP that I differ on the most.
Yeah.
In my latest underdog update, and I have not updated this for the Chris Middleton, the kind of the murkiness around his situation, which we can talk about as well. I love Ant, man. It is not a knock on him at all. As I see you go Steph here, and then you're on the clock as well here at 14. I just don't see how I can go Ant over guys like Hallie and even Steph. Like, it's close. If you want to take Ant Edwards over Steph, even over a Damian Lillard, okay, I get it. Those guys are all very close to me. But guard is the least important position for me at the top, even though you and I just drafted 3 guards to start here.
I know.
I think the ceiling is a little bit lower in terms of best ball, the fantasy upside of Anthony Edwards compared to some of those other guards we were talking about. And again, I have him at 14. That's not a knock. That's right on the edge of the first round. So it's not like I'm down on Anthony Edwards. I just think there's a little bit higher ceiling for me over the course of a full best ball. For guys like Hallie and Steph, who are still very much, the alphas. And now here, I guess since I don't have Anthony Davis, I'll take a LeBron share here. I think Anthony Davis is the guy I have the most of relative to the field. I have him at 8 overall right now.
Yeah, I was going to ask that too, because I've been hammering AD ahead of Sabonis, and I would have taken AD at. I think I've been taking him at like 8 through 12. I've been trying to take him.
Yeah.
Because I agree. I mean, he is a monster. I mean, your biggest concern is him just staying on the court. But I mean, I'm drafting all of these guys assuming they stay on the court.
Yeah. And I think that leads us to a conversation you and I were having the other day as we were drafting.
Yeah.
Zion Williamson is the guy in the 3rd round that I am getting. It feels like almost every draft over the last couple weeks, because I was already taking the shot on him having a full off season, coming in ready to go on when the season tips off. Because this is a guy, I had him last year. I think I had him ranked like 12th or 13th. I was over the field last year too. Obviously, that didn't work out after he went out in January. But this is a guy that had the Pelicans, I think, a game off of the Nuggets pace when Zion went down. So we know they are a top team in the West when he's healthy. And now we've got guys like David Griffin saying, and again, it's best shape of your life season when it's media day, right? But Zion, and by all accounts, has taken this offseason a little bit more seriously than his previous, 3 summers at the professional level. If you can guarantee me 65 games of Zion, where are we taking him? I think it's mid-second round at worst in that case. And so he's one of those guys that I am, like you said, with Anthony Davis, I'm taking the chance on because if he's healthy, to me, that's like a guy that you're building a tournament winner around. A guy like Zion, in where I've got him last week on this stream. I got him at the 11th pick in the 3rd round, which to me is just way
crazy.
Too low. Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. I'm assuming, I feel like you have to take a stand one way or the other. If you're like, Zion doesn't have it in him, he's never going to play a full season, then you just never draft him. But if you do think he's going to play, you draft him as much as you can, because I agree, because I think he can be your best wing on a like a tournament winning team.
Yeah. Not today, UNC. Not today, my friend. We'll see.
I know. He's probably not getting back to me.
Yeah. So, but speaking of murky situations, and we'll talk Middleton in a little bit, this is something that is confounding me. Maybe the biggest question mark I have in these drafts right now is James Harden and what to do with the beard, because for a couple hours there, when he didn't show up to media day, I was ready to move him down to like the 70s in my rankings. Because if we're in for a 2 or 3 month standoff between Daryl Morey and James Harden, obviously I want none of that. I want no piece of that. I'm already taking shots on a guy like Ja Morant, who we know is gonna miss 25 games.
Right.
But then he should be back, and we know Ja's going to be with the team, or at least that's what was reported this week. He'll be practicing, he'll be traveling, and as of course, Zion going to PZM there at 3-5. How are you viewing this situation in Philadelphia? Because James Harden then the next day at Colorado State participating in practice.
Yeah.
And like this doesn't like we heard all the smoke guys were talking about Harden, and you can only wiggle your way out of so many situations, which when he wiggled his way out of Houston, I think the argument could be made he jiggled his way out of Houston, because he did not come into camp or into that season in shape. The pictures coming out of Colorado State, man, he looks like he has been working this offseason.
Right.
So I do not know what to do with James Harden. How do you view that situation?
So I don't really love him going to the Clippers for fantasy. For basketball, I think it's fine. But I mean, he's still going to be competing with like Russ, Kawhi, and Paul George. So maybe he continues to be the assist king, right? Maybe he gives you like 17 and 10. And I guess where he's being drafted, maybe you take that. But there was some, as I get on the clock here, there were some reports coming out of, I'm going to draft somebody from Miami right now as I select Jimmy Butler, but that Miami might be a landing spot. And that I'm far more intrigued by fantasy wise, because, even though I just took Jimmy Butler, Jimmy Butler loves to play like 58 games.
Yeah.
and they don't have a guard. It's Kyle Lowry right now. This is a spot where I don't know what to do. I'll be honest, because I really want to draft as much Cade Cunningham as possible. But already having Steph and Trey and knowing that I can get guards again later, I think, and I don't have Zion here, so maybe I think I'm just going to take BI there.
Yeah. I'm contractually obligated to draft Kawhi Leonard in that spot, which again, you mentioned the Clippers, less excited about them from a fantasy perspective. I agree. But I also think both PG and Kawhi here, by all accounts, healthy coming into camp, ready to go.
I love drafting both of them. It was more of like James Harden entering that. I feel like that limits what he can do. Kawhi and Paul George, like the fact that Kawhi is going that late, and again, you're banking like if I'm drafting him, I'm assuming he's going to play games, and if that's the case, he's like a top 15 guy.
Yeah. Well, it seems like to me that the concern there, which is of course well-founded and appropriate to have when it comes to both of these guys, especially Kawhi, but it's baked in. The ADP in the low 40s, like you said, when this guy plays, and again, I am very much looking at Kawhi Leonard through claw colored lenses here, right? But it's my namesake here, so I understand that I don't seem to be the most unbiased source here, as I will take Cade Cunningham.
I love Cade.
Yeah, and I think a guy that maybe the field kind of sleeping on a little bit from a fantasy perspective, just because he kind of has had 2 false starts to his career.
Right.
But again, back to what you were saying with Kawhi, potentially a top 15 fantasy asset if he's healthy throughout the season, even missing those back-to-backs. So being able to grab him in the 4th round, I think it is nice as well.
And especially if he's not your main wing, right? Like if you have other guys that are going to be able to carry you week to week, and you just get a healthy Kawhi run as the regular season winds down for Underdog, like now all of a sudden he's like one of your top guys. I don't know. I just, again, at that spot, I have quite a bit of Kawhi. I've been like trying to flip flop Kawhi and Brandon Ingram, because I do want a lot of shots at BI as well.
Yeah. Well, and I've had to pass on a good amount of Brandon Ingram like potential because I keep taking Zion, and I certainly don't want to stack those guys. I see Jeff in here says, agreeing, take Zion. You can take young wings as backups who are less likely to miss games. Right there with you. And yeah, man, I mean, this is one of the, I think the most interesting range here for me in a draft right now is these like 40s to 50s, because Ja Morant, a guy who was getting taken in the 40s, the field now backing off of that, which I understand, but the farther he falls, the more I get a start like this, where I've got SGA and Cade and LeBron and Scotty Barnes. And if I don't like any of these bigs, or if any of these bigs maybe don't fall to me, I keep looking at this like, with the start I have, I think I can keep this team afloat for the first 2.5 months of the season. And then I'm adding Ja Morant back to a squad like this. Like, this is where I start to think maybe I take a shot on the guy who, again, you're sacrificing 25 games off the top, but once he comes back, Ja Morant, again, top 10 or 15 fantasy assets. So that's another tricky situation in here where we're starting to get into the guys that have legitimate question marks around their upside and their floor, I guess, at the same time, right?
Yeah, I think you hit it. It depends on roster construction. Like I've found if I take like a wing or a big with my first overall pick, probably less likely to get to Ja. But like with the start that I had, where like similar to yours, well, my first 2 picks, right, Steph and Trey.
Right.
I'm fine. Like I'm gonna be fine at guard. So I can take a shot on somebody like Ja there, because I don't love this range either. Like nothing about Levine or Fred VanVleet gets me too excited. I do like Franz Wagner quite a bit. What are you doing with Chet Holmgren? How do you feel about Chet?
Well, I'm drafting him, Mike. Okay. I think this is we'll see. And PZM sniped me before, so maybe we can get a nice little read on if he is watching this or not. He goes Franz, so Chet is going to be the pick for me here. I just think clearly the highest upside of the other big options in this range. And another guy that's maybe a little under the radar because he did not play his rookie season. So yeah, that is definitely the pick for me, and I'll go ahead and make it and just keep things moving here. But Fred VanVleet, you mentioned him. That was a guy that I had no shares of until the most recent KPJ crap happened with him. Now I'm getting some Fred, and on both Underdog and DraftKings, Amen Thompson, man, is somebody that I continue to draft because the statistical upside for that guy with KPJ out of the way, I think is just, the floor is just so much more solid than it was coming out of the draft.
Yeah. I normally don't do this, and this is going to be my first share. I think I'm going to take DeAndre Ayton here.
Yeah.
I kind of like the idea of just getting a big out of the way, because if I don't take one here, it kind of, I mean, I could have gotten away with it, but I don't know. I think I want a little bit of exposure to DeAndre after getting this new location. I feel like he'll be a little hungry to at least put up numbers, even if they're fake numbers. So we'll take a shot at DeAndre there. And then I think with this next pick here, I think I'm going to grab another wing because I do think wing starts to fall off a little bit. And I know we talked a little bit about Fred VanVleet. I am kind of excited about all of the news coming out about Jabari Smith Jr. Right now, and it seems like they're trying to use him a little bit more. Maybe I'm just overcome by seeing him live in Summer League where he just went absolutely bonkers.
Yeah.
But I don't have a lot of him, so I've been trying to sprinkle him in a little bit more lately.
Yeah, I don't hate that. And I love the Ayton selection here as your first big end of the 5th round.
Yeah.
It's, again, we're not necessarily concerned with the real life consequences of that trade, right? The Portland is not going to be good,
right?
But DeAndre Ayton getting away from Devin Booker and Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal coming in, like, this was a guy that had his statistical ceiling was a little bit capped in Phoenix, and I think certainly I'm very intrigued. Scoot Henderson is one of my highest owned players right now, and I'm interested to see what he can do, or those two guys can do alongside each other.
Yeah.
I don't have a ton of Bradley Beal, so he's in consideration for me. I guess let's talk about this because you are a Boston Celtics guy, right?
Yeah.
Jrue Holiday. Celtics or Bucks this season, man? Because it's clearly those two at the top in the East, right?
Yeah, I'm excited. Are you going to take Bradley Beal? Is that where we're going there?
Yeah, I think that's
wow. Look at a Bradley Beal exposure. Yeah, dude, I love the addition of Jrue Holiday to the Celtics. I'm actually having a tough time taking anyone seriously that doesn't like it, and because there's been like some pushback, being like, oh well, they got worse by adding Jrue Holiday. I'm like, you're out of your mind. If you're gonna, that's it, like insane, right? Because he went from basically their primary ball handler and second leading scorer, or I guess Middleton, but Middleton missed so much time, and also their primary defender on whoever their best player was. And everybody's holding the Jimmy Butler stuff against him, which, first of all, Jimmy Butler went absolutely nuclear in that first round. And like, he did burn Holiday. That's the one example we have over the last 12 years. I'm okay with it, especially because he's being added to a team that has so many awesome individual and team defenders. So like he's going to be their 3rd or 4th option. No, he's definitely going to be their 4th option. I think Porzingis is going to get more love, but anyways, but to say that, I think that makes the Celtics a lot better. I think that I don't love his fantasy upside right now. But
at least he's being drafted, right?
Yeah.
He's got to fall a little bit more, at least for me to really be excited about Jrue again. But I totally with you on the real life basketball fallout from that move. I think there's a legitimate argument that Boston they increased their ceiling more than Milwaukee did. And it's very close. I'm not saying that's like definitive, but Boston they had problems literally dribbling the basketball the last 2 years. Right. And Jrue Holiday is not Fort Knox when it comes to taking care of the ball, but he's a much better option, I think, than the trio of guards that we've seen that we saw last year, and being able to get Brogdon out of there, who clearly was not happy after they tried to trade him in the offseason. I think it's great. And like you said, if Jimmy Butler's your one worry with Jrue Holiday, guess what? He ain't guarding Jimmy Butler on this team. So
that's I 100%. What about Middleton though? How did you, I haven't really thought about this too much, but how do you think this like Dame addition affects Middleton?
I think game to game ceiling comes down a little bit, right? Just because Dame is going to be a much higher usage player in this offense than Jrue was. Mm-hmm. But it's not I'm more, I guess I'm not super concerned. I'm hesitant with the news that the kind of the ramp up that they seem to be doing with Middleton here in training camp.
That obviously dialogue was so weird, wasn't it?
Yeah. I wanted to, and do you know if there was any audio or video of that exchange anywhere? Because I only read the text.
No, I only read the text as well. I didn't see any of the audio.
See, and that was something that I wanted to kind of take a second look at if I could, because I think you can gain a little bit more insight on maybe how serious that situation is by actually hearing Adrian Griffin and the inflection in his voice. Maybe I'm getting a little bit too tinfoil hatty.
No, I think you're right.
I don't think I'm super concerned. And when Chris Middleton's dropping to the middle of the 7th round here, I'm totally fine taking him. Because I still think that the most likely outcome with Middleton is he's ready to go and starts at the 3. on opening night from Milwaukee. And if you're getting him in the 70s, I still feel like he's aging. I get it. The knee problems last year, I get it. But look how productive the man was when he did come back. And like he was thriving in that bench role for a while last year too.
And he's going to just get wide open looks too. I mean, that's the thing. They can't defend him the way that teams were now when you add Dame.
Right.
I see Russ is still on the board, and I wanted to. I think I've been overlooking Russ a little bit,
Same.
and I recently have not regretted it, but I've started taking a few more shots because I was thinking just more about like how his role evolved a little bit. And maybe I have the playoff rose-colored glasses because he's without Paul George for a little bit and without Kawhi. But I still feel like at this point in the draft, right, with an ADP of like 77, you're still getting like a starting point guard who like has, double upside like pretty regularly.
Yeah.
And I actually think I am going to click him here. Actually, you know what?
Think you can get him on the turn there?
Yeah, I'm gonna try. I want them.
Ooh, I like it.
Yeah, I'll take it. And because of part of the reason why I'm not drafting Wemby as much, and I'm gonna I just double click guards here? I think we do. I think I am gonna take Russ.
I like it.
Because I'm slowing down a little bit on drafting Wemby, I'm just like, well, then if this is true, what else is true? And maybe it's Vassell just goes nuclear this year. And I mean, I don't know. Him and Sohan. I know you want to talk about Spurs, but I've been snagging both of those guys.
Yeah, I think both of those guys better values right now than Keldon Johnson. There's some question, I think, and it may come down to matchups as the season progresses. Who's the sixth man in San Antonio? Because it ain't Wemby, and somebody's got to get put to the bench. And on media day, Popovich said, hey, if Manu Ginobili can come off the bench, anybody can. It could be Keldon. It could be Sohan. If I had to put money down right now, Sohan starts the year off the bench, and we see it kind of fluctuate. I don't think it's crazy to see later in the season Trey Jones off the bench and Jeremy Sohan starting at point guard.
So that right there is why I've been drafting Jeremy Sohan, because if I'm getting a wing at whatever number he is in an ADP, and he's now there, even if it's not starting at the point guard, like if he is facilitating in the second unit and then probably closing because of his defensive capabilities, I think he's such a steal that late in the draft. And even if he doesn't do that, even if he plays the same role that he played this past season, whatever, you're getting him where you're getting him. It's not like it's a huge risk. It's only upside.
I'm with you there. And you saw the Vassell extension that was coming. I think a good deal for both sides there.
Definitely.
Devin Vassell getting 150 million, 135, whatever it is. Again, it's eye popping on the surface, but you look at obviously the new salary cap rules coming in with the CBA and the cap increasing with the new TV deal soon. I think that's going to be a mutually beneficial deal there. And again, I think is a very clear signal that it's Wemby 1 and Vassell 2 as the team is currently constructed. Yes, I've been getting a ton. He's one of my highest owned players, Vassell is. And so seeing you grab him in the 80s, man, the people are realizing, I think, the value there on Vassell at guard.
I think I've drafted him in actually, I'm going to look up my exposure on him right now. But in the last 2 weeks, I've been forcing it. Just because I was like, we need to start taking some stands. And I've been finding that I wasn't getting I don't know if weird enough is the right word, but I was having some pretty chalky type builds. And I was like, I need to do a little bit of scrolling up and scrolling down before making some of these picks.
Yeah. And so mentioning Vassell right now, my 6th highest owned player. And looking at this list, it does bring me to the Pacers. And we just saw Bruce Brown go off the board. Obi Toppin is coming up soon. But Jarris Walker, currently my 5th highest owned player. This was a guy that we could get for free at the beginning of draft season. So I loaded up on him early and still have taken a couple shares. But you see the reporting out of camp that the starting group is including not only Bruce Brown, but Obi Toppin. I don't think it stays that way throughout the season. I do think Jarris Walker ends up taking over for Toppin at some point. But how do you see kind of this Pacers team? Because outside of Hallie, which is kind of the sure thing up top, right? I think there's a lot of question marks on who could actually pick up the production here with the Buddy Hield, trade rumors, and then maybe now he's going to stay. So it's a little bit cloudy there.
I was doing the same thing you were doing. I was taking a lot of Walker. I think I have him. I've slowed down since he started to creep up, but yeah, so like 9% Walker so far. I've been drafting Bruce Brown when I kind of have a tough time figuring out what he are the Pacers going to use Bruce Brown the same way the Nuggets use Bruce Brown? Because if that's the case, I don't really love drafting him there. Like he was more of a DFS play than a season-long play. But if he's going to be used differently and if he's going to slide into the starting lineup, I do like him. I've been fading Obi Toppin too. I just don't really. I know people are really excited about Obi Toppin, but can you talk to me about Wendell Carter Jr. a little bit as we see him? Do you like him?
And I'm going to draft him right here. This is a guy that I think, again, Mark Williams as my highest owned player so far. Luckily, he goes right before me because I've tried to put the clamps and put a little cap on my mark, clicking his name. But I just think he has the highest upside in this range. And I think Wendell Carter is probably number 2 because I think there's concerns with Brook Lopez. We know Brolo will sit out some of those back-to-backs, and he's an aging guy. Yusuf Nurkic also injury prone throughout his career. Nurkic, I think, with Ayton, both of those guys to me got a little bit of a bump with that trade. But yeah, Wendell Carter, man, if I don't have Paolo Banchero on my team, I like Wendell Carter in this range as well. I like Mark Williams a little bit more, so I've been getting more of him, but Wendell Carter's the guy that now I'm drafting to avoid having 75% Mark Williams.
So they are both those two guys, Wendell Carter Jr. and Mark Williams, are both my 2 highest owned guys at 33%. Because what I've been doing, if I don't get one of, and we've talked about this, I think last year, but if I don't get the Jokic, Embiid, AD, Sabonis, maybe Karl Anthony Towns, but honestly, I'm just like never drafting Karl Anthony Towns. So those other 4, right? If I don't get them, then I need to take like 2 of those guys in that range of like Wendell Carter, Mark Williams. I actually like a little bit later in the draft, I kind of like Zach Collins as one of those once they, and I don't love Zach Collins, but once they said Wemby, we're starting him at the 4, I was like, well, okay, so Zach Collins is starting. If I can get a starting center this late at like 150 or whatever it was, I've been throwing him in there, but that's been kind of like my the equivalent to 0 RB. That's been my 0 center plays. I just right around 90, I just start firing out 4 bigs.
Yeah, man. Zach Collins was another guy that was free when draft season started back in mid-August, or NBA draft season rather. So I still have 21% Zach Collins because that's just residual from grabbing him in the 16th round for the entire first 2 weeks. But yeah, I do like the Zach Collins pick. When you can find those starting centers in the 140 pluses as, your third big if you want one, when you got one of those elite guys, or your 4th if you're just trying to, play roulette with those, 9th round and later. And I think now another guy that's on my radar even more, and I know the field has been the field has caused his ADP to start climbing over these last couple of weeks. Derek Lively is in position to start at center, which I think is the right move for the future of that franchise. I just didn't think it was going to happen this quickly. Do you have any Derek Lively thoughts?
Yeah, well, so I was drafting Derek Lively in the 16th round, almost for like my first 3, like 5, I don't know. I was something like I think I'm at 10% Derek Lively. And then I stopped because all of the reports, or maybe not even reports, I guess like just podcasts that I listened to would be in like, oh, the upside on Lively in 3 to 4 years is going to be great. He's a project. He's probably not going to play a lot at the top of the season. And then I did hear that it looks like he might slide into the starting role. And I'm like, man, whoever starts with Luka is at least going to get, if they can rim run and defend and stay out on the court like that, whatever, dude, give me like 8 points and 10 boards from a 15th or 16th round pick. I'll do that every time.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's somebody I've been kind of lumping into that late round big rotation here. Hit him, Paul Reed, really on both sides. Like after he got his extension, like I think he's very clearly the backup to Embiid, and Embiid missing games is not something that he's a stranger to either. Right. So he's another guy I've been throwing in late in drafts. That was a tough pick that I just had. I ended up going Draymond, who could potentially miss the first few games of the season. But I think just kind of a high floor guy as my fourth forward there. But this is a very tough range, I think, for both guard and wing. You've got some high upside situations here with a Tari Eason, maybe even a D'Angelo Russell, who should be the starting guard until he can be traded until December.
Right.
He'll end up somewhere else. So I don't hate like a D'Lo pick here in the mid rounds, or mid to late rounds where we are now, with the idea that he could get traded to a team where he plays a much more alpha type of role in the backcourt, because even if he's starting for this Lakers team, he's option 3 at best. And I think Austin Reeves has something to say about that.
Yeah, no, I think so too. And I mean, they picked up Gabe Vincent. I think Gabe Vincent's going to steal some of those closing minutes from D'Lo as well, which that was somebody I was taking here and there pretty late, of just being like, I don't need you now, but maybe you come in handy down the stretch after D'Lo is moved. I actually don't have as much Austin Reeves as I thought I was going to. I can't figure out what his actual fantasy upside will look like.
Yeah.
I think like you might get a spike week here and there where he goes off, but if LeBron and AD are playing regularly, I don't know. I mean, what's his height? Like 18-7, 18-6? Like,
even then, like, is he going to play? Like, he was putting up those stat lines, and look, this is not let's hate on Austin Reeves.
No.
Like, he has gone above and beyond, maybe 10 times over what I ever thought that guy was going to be in the league, and credit to him, because I think he proved it at the World Cup. Like, that guy comes to play.
Absolutely.
But to your point, from a fantasy standpoint, this is going to be Markelle Fultz for me here as my fourth guard. I don't see the upside when he's in the range of a Devin Vassell, a Jaden Ivey, who I think is a fine pick in the 90s. I just can't get there, because as long as LeBron and AD are playing, again, like you said, maybe a spike week here or there, but in those later rounds, we're swinging for guys that have true upside, and I can't get there on Austin Reeves where we're drafting him.
No, I can't either. I don't know what I'm going to do here. I'm not touching Christian Wood. I think it's like wild that he's getting drafted. I mean, maybe not wild, but I'm just not a Christian
It's too high still. And he's dropped in his ADP actually since signing there, which I think is a little bit interesting. But
I know.
I mean, here, like, to me, it's Steven Adams if you're looking for a big.
Yeah, I don't have any Steven Adams. I hate this pick.
This is where I think it's okay to start reaching. Like, if you go 20, you pick some guy 20 picks above ADP. If that's your guy, go get him.
Take Sadiq Bey. I didn't really want to take Sadiq Bey, but I don't love anybody. But yeah, you're right. Like Lou Dort, I actually should have taken Lou Dort or Caleb Martin.
We had Kai guy in here. Always draft Lou Dort. A little Dort report.
I actually might see it, right? I might snag Steven Adams here and then just not draft any more bigs, and we'll be done with it here.
Yeah.
With Ayton, Brook, and Steven Adams. I'll be honest, I timed out on Brook Lopez in that pick. I totally missed it. But 10 picks after ADP, so it's a W.
Yeah, there you go. And Steven Adams here, man, I think he is the forgotten big in this range. Like, he's a good fantasy producer. And I would say good to great for where we get to draft him here.
Absolutely, yeah.
I believe unless I missed something, he's healthy now.
Yeah.
He's still going to be the center. Triple J is the 4. And when they play those bigger matchups against larger front courts, Steven Adams can give you, if we're talking DK points, right, on a night-to-night basis, we're never surprised to see Steven Adams put up 40 on DK in a night. So, again, one of those guys who can have big spike weeks late. And if you're looking, if you don't have one of those elite bigs, I think he's my favorite in this range to add late on.
Yeah. I don't think we're drafting him yet. He's probably a little bit further down. I was looking at some of the guys that have been getting the most here, and with Utah, have you been dabbling with anyone in Utah outside of Lauri Markkanen? And there are people you're targeting?
Yeah, and this is actually somebody, as we were talking here, and I was looking at my exposures. I am now just over 20% on Keontae George at the end of drafts.
Yeah, I am too. I'm at 23% right now as well. So that's why I was curious. I'm more doing it because of the murkiness at the point guard position in Utah, where I don't think they really want Jordan Clarkson being the point guard, even though he does handle it. And I don't think it's going to be Sexton, even though I like what Sexton does off the bench for that team. So to me, it's either like THT or I know there was like some talk Chris Dunn could be the starting point guard for Utah.
Yeah.
But if like Keontae comes out and does even like 15% of what he did in Summer League,
Yeah.
I like taking a shot at that, at a team that plays fast and getting their starting young point guard, you know?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think you and I differ between THT and Sexton. I think Sexton is going to be playing certainly those guard minutes over THT. I have historically been on the side that is laughing at THT when you do the 9 points a night drop over there on Team Hold. Like,
yes.
I'm not laughing with, I'm laughing at him. And again, when he's the guy, like we saw to end last year with Utah, yeah, he can put up some big fantasy performances, but look at what point of the season Utah had to get to last year for him to step into that role. I think Colin Sexton's going to be maybe the starting point guard to begin the year, but certainly not going to lose his role. And we know that guy loves himself a Colin Sexton shot. I mean, averaged 20 a game, I think, for multiple years in Cleveland. So again, I'm Keontae George over Colin Sexton where we have to draft him, but I would take Sexton over THT this year. But again, I don't think Utah's going to get to that point where they're, at least in the underdog schedule, where again, this is something we didn't talk about.
Right.
Different payout structure this year, which completely changes the emphasis we put on those playoff schedules. Like DraftKings still has the normal best ball playoff schedule where we're looking at, okay, Cleveland has 24 games during this 6-week period, etc. But on Underdog this year, $75K up top to the regular season, the highest scoring regular season team. I kind of like the change because now on Underdog, I can just focus on building what I think is the team with the highest upside, or the best team, what have you.
Right, you're projecting fantasy performance versus like full team record. Where are they jockeying for position? Are they jockeying for draft pick? Like all that stuff. I totally agree. I enjoyed the change too, even though it was kind of fun doing like a beautiful mind shit, trying to figure out what the playoffs were like. Another guy in that range, like similar, I guess, going later than Keontae that I've been hammering lately is Bogdan of the Hawks. And
he's basically free.
Yeah, he's like the last round, and I don't know if it's maybe injury fatigue, right? Because he like started off really slow last season because he wasn't playing, and then they like eased him back in, and the Trey and DeJounte's there. But I mean, I feel like for the last round, even if Trey and DeJounte don't miss time, I feel like he can still give you some serviceable weeks. And again, just like watching him play, maybe I'm just too addicted to the FIBA World Cup. Right. It's like, dude, Bogdan's been unleashed.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think, and now I've got a decision here. I don't want to leave Bogdan in the dust there, but Keontae George, we talked about him. Mike Conley to me too. I know he's one of the oldest players in the league, but starting guard for this Minnesota team, I have a lot of Conley as well. I think this is going to be Keontae George again for me because, again, Mike Conley is my highest owned guard right now because he's free at the end of draft. So you need a 5th or 6th guard. Mike Conley is usually the choice, but Keontae George right there for me as well. So I'll let somebody else hop on the Conley train for this draft. And yeah, I'm right there with you on Bogdan. Maybe we're letting the World Cup performance seep in a little bit, but again, it's 15th, 16th round. There's no risks to it, and there's a ton of upside there. Again, if Trey or DJ miss, and like, I don't know, man, are we shocked if one of those guards doesn't end the season in Atlanta?
No, not at all. Not at all. I'll grab
like it could go sideways again. And I'm just not a huge. I know we're sitting here staring at Trae Young on your team. I'm not a huge Trae Young guy. Statistically, obviously off the charts, but we'll see. Did you see John Collins taking shots at him?
Yes,
on media
I loved
day?
it. Yeah, I don't love Trae Young either. It was just kind of like at that spot, I don't really know what to do. I'm taking this has been one of my popular picks lately too. Is KJ Martin, and especially since Marcus Morris decided to unfollow Russ Westbrook on Instagram.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, like right after he gave everybody a new phone. I was joking that maybe Marcus Morris is an Android guy, and that like really pissed him off with the new iPhone. But if Marcus Morris is really going to be like just taken out of that rotation, and PG and Kawhi are just going to miss games here and there, And I don't know. I always liked KJ's game in Houston. I understand why it didn't work out there and why they had to move off him, but I think he'll plug and play a little bit nicely in there. So I've been trying to get him a little bit more frequently here late.
Yeah, and especially if you don't pick up one of those all-star Clipper wings, like for all the reasons you just mentioned, KJ Martin makes a ton of sense. Back on the clock here, and it's gonna be Jalen Johnson. I think there's an argument for Jonathan Kuminga, Kelly Oubre as well, coming off the bench. Like Kelly Oubre averaged 20 points a game last year off the bench for Charlotte. Different situation here, joining the reigning MVP and Tyrese Maxey, etc. But I think Oubre is a fine shout this late. Jalen Johnson, and we were talking about the backcourt for the Hawks. Here at the 4, John Collins is out of there. Yeah. Who fills that void? Is it Hunter sliding down? Is it Sadiq Bey jumping into the starting lineup? I think Jalen Johnson, going the latest, I believe, out of those 3 Hawks, we know what he can do from a fantasy perspective on a game-to-game basis when he gets the minutes.
Yeah,
I like taking a shot on Jalen Johnson this late because there is a void there, and maybe I've missed some reporting on how that's going to be filled, but I think there's a little bit of ambiguity there in Atlanta.
Yeah, and I mean, even if he doesn't start, right, like the vacancy is still like real. There's going to be minutes available, and I do think he's going to, like, they were giving him run last year when they still had John Collins. So
yeah, for sure.
I like it. I'm still so fascinated by what Atlanta's going to do this season. Just both, like, do they keep Capella and Okongwu throughout the whole season? We know they love Onyeka. I want them to trade Capella because I feel like Okongwu, I have a lot of Okongwu, and I feel like he could just like flourish without Capella there. And I know they've like dangled it. They've talked about, oh yeah, Capella might be on the move, but I'm fascinated to watch this Atlanta Hawks season play out.
Yeah, no, and I'm with you on Okongwu. Like the fact that Capella is still there is the only thing holding me off. And of course, if Capella was moved, then everybody's drafting Okongwu at 60 or whatever, So I get it. Jared Vanderbilt going off the board as well. I think that's a sneaky pick late on because that's a fantasy point per minute guy that should probably still be starting for this Lakers team in the regular season.
Yeah.
So an interesting pick there. Just checking on some of the comments. Jeff said Derek Lively's his highest drafted player. And I'm with you. I can't believe people actually thought Dwight Powell would be the starter all year. And Powell may start some games. And look, I'm not even shocked if we get to opening night and Powell is at the 5. But Lively's going to get his shot. And like, if the 2 guys you have to beat out are Dwight Powell and Rashawn Holmes, you have a chance to solidify that all year.
Right. We've had like 15 different teams tell us they don't want to play Rashawn Holmes, so I'm not really worried about him.
Exactly. Mark in here saying still doing his slows, but it's got Fultz, Jarris Walker, Zach Collins, Jeremy Sohan as some of his highest owned players through 32 drafts complete there for Mark. Jeff says, Keontae George going to start at some point. I do. Everything I've read from Utah, they're really high on this kid. And again, maybe I'm letting the summer league success seep into my mind and kind of cause a bias there. But hey, man, just like when we want to go get our guys in a best ball draft, if Keontae George was Utah's guy, then he could have a really big role for this team.
Yeah, I hope so, man. I got 25% Keontae right now looking at it.
Jeff said rather have Shake over Mike Conley. We saw Shake getting some good run in the preseason opener yesterday over there in Abu Dhabi. As I'm on the clock, and this is probably going to be a Christian Brown pick.
I bet. God, I'm glad we're on these same guys here because I've been hitting Christian Brown there too. Brown there as well.
Yeah, I think the wild card pick there is Peyton Watson. It's tougher to get there just because Brown, I think, with the draft capital, with what we saw last year, probably a little bit of a better player at this point. But in terms of fantasy production, if it was Peyton Watson getting that shot to fill the Bruce Brown role, he would be a hell of a steal here late on. But maybe like a fringe guy, a waiver wire guy in your season-long leagues, Peyton Watson. But back to Shake over Conley. I get it. I just don't think Conley's going to vanish. And like minutes restriction risk, injury risk. Yeah, risks. You can get him in the 14th, 15th round. I'll take the starter there, the guy who's, a former All-Star. As long as Minnesota's in it, I don't see Mike Conley losing his starting gig. Shake Milton's going to provide some serious DFS value at some point, though.
I took Jovic right there. Which
we had a conversation about him too.
Yeah. I was gonna bring up Taylor Hendricks too. That's somebody I've been taking shots on late. Like just any of these. I mean, he's a lottery pick that you can get for free here at the end. But I think I do want to kind of grab another guard. I kind of. Oh wait, Brown. I don't really love this situation here. You know what? Maybe you know what I'm going to throw in here with my last pick. Although this might be foolish, but I threw Jaden Hardy in there.
Oh yeah, I got plenty of Hardy.
Yeah, that's again the last pick of the draft, and who knows, Kyrie might implode come December, and all of a sudden he's thrust into the starting lineup. So, and we saw what he could do when he actually got some run.
Yeah, I'm trying to find. I guess I could just search for Hardy shares here because I know I've got some significant exposure here. Hardy. I guess only 6% Jaden Hardy for me right now. I've got more Taylor Hendricks. I have 9% Taylor Hendricks right now. So I've certainly been in on that.
I've been doing Hendricks, and I got 8% him. The other one that I've been getting is Bilal Koulibaly.
Koulibaly, yeah.
And oh wow, I have 13%, which is probably too high. But just like again, same thing. Like somebody that was taken in the top part of the draft. Like on a shit team, right? It's not like the Wizards are going to go out there and try to win. So I'm sure we're going to get like those random weeks where Kuzma and Poole don't play a game.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Branham. I thought Branham was guard eligible, and that's why I was going to snag him there with that pick.
Yeah, and I think I do have more Koulibaly than Branham right now, so I'm going to take Malachi and close it out with a little homer pick because I had no Spurs on this roster. So again, contractually obligated for the content there. But I think Koulibaly, I think you're spot on in terms of what my take would be as well. Like 6th overall pick, right? I know the kid's got a ton of growing to do to be like NBA ready, but the Wizards have all the incentive in the world to let his leash go almost as long as it needs to be this season. So I think we see some Koulibaly in the G League at times. And I think we see some Koulibaly starting for the Wizards at some point. So yeah, I think in 16th round, he's a guy. I can pull up my exposure one more time here. I definitely have a non-zero amount of Bilal. Yeah, I'm at 14%, so I'm right there.
There you go. Let's go.
Yeah. I don't know. Are we drafting the same teams here, Mike?
I know. I saw in Mark's got a question too. I saw him talk about Cam Whitmore. That was another one that I was drafting a ton of, and I finally stopped doing that because I was like, dude, it's gonna be so hard for Cam Whitmore to get on the floor with as many guys as they have. But I do like Cam Whitmore.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, 16th, 15th, 16th round, take Cam Whitmore. I'm getting a lot more exposure to their backcourt now with the KPJ thing going down. So Fred and Amon and even some Jalen Green. Jalen Green draft position factored in is probably 3rd for me on that list with Amon being number 1. Just because Jalen obviously can be an elite scorer on any given night, but what else is he providing us statistically?
Right. You need him to score 35 a game. Like that's the only way he gets there for you.
Yeah, and to your point, I think for Whitmore to really do it for us, things have to go sideways in Houston. Like they brought in Bullock and Dylan Brooks, and I think Jeff Green is there too. Like
Jeff Green,
they've got some veterans in there, which I think much more healthy environment for that team. With some of those guys in there. So let's take a look at the board as we finished up here. Mike started Steph and Trey. Backed them up with Vassell, Russ Westbrook, Mike Conley, Jaden Hardy. I love that. I think Jaden Hardy in the 16th round, if you don't have Luka or Kyrie, it's hard to make an argument for a better last round pick in my mind. We know what type of usage that guy gets if both of those guards are out, which, maybe they don't get to the point where they were at the end of last year tanking to try to hold on to their pick. But with Kyrie being one of those two options, there's going to be some sort of something that happens, right, where he misses some time in the middle of the year.
Right.
Wings, Jimmy Butler, Brandon Ingram, Jabari Smith, Jeremy Sohan, Sadiq Bey, KJ Martin, Nikola Jovic, and then bigs, Ayton, Brolo, and Funaki, Steven Adams. So how are you feeling about the team?
I feel okay. I think my wings make me a little bit nervous when I start with Jimmy and Brandon Ingram because they famously like to take some time off. So I do like that. I backed it up with Jabari and Sohan, but I got to tell you, I hate the guard start. So I think looking at it again, I almost clicked Siakam instead of KD there with that second round pick. I was very close to doing that. And then I was like, I don't have any Trae Young, so let's just get a Trae Young in there. But I think like looking at it, I just think it's a lot harder to build a team starting guard because of how deep the guard position is and how quickly the wings fall off. But other than that, I mean, it rounded out nicely, so I don't hate it.
Yeah, and I think that's, if we were going to preach the best ball draft gospel here in NBA on Underdog, the guard start is not our ideal start, but it's also tough to complain about Steph and Trae Young being on your team. So once you fill it out as you did, I think you feel okay about it.
Yeah.
I like that, the Siakam take, potentially taking him there. It's a guy that does not really miss games, going to have a ton of usage up there in Toronto. What do you think about McCall Bridges? Because we see him go at the back end of the first round here.
So, I don't want this to come off as shade because I love Mikal Bridges.
I think I'm with you.
Yeah, he's the only reason to go to a Brooklyn Nets game. But, dude, I mean, he went after Steph Curry, right? Is that – or – no, he went before – yeah, he went right after Steph Curry.
Yeah.
And then before, well, Randall, whatever, but before Trae Young, KD, Siakam, Dame, LaMelo, Donovan Mitchell, Devin Booker, Jaylen Brown, like that was a pretty small sample size of what we saw Bridges do in Brooklyn, and they didn't win games playing that way. So I can't imagine that's exactly what they want to do. So if you were taking Mikal Bridges a rep between 20 and like, right? No, I'm sorry, between like 20, pick 20 to like 28. I like it a little more. 12th overall.
Yeah.
I mean, the other side is that he plays every game, right? So you're not really worried about that. But I don't know. Where are you on that? Sorry, I preached.
No, man. I think we're almost in lockstep here. Like, I think the best thing you can say about McCall Bridges is, again, if he keeps up the 26, 4, and 3 or whatever he was in Brooklyn last year, then by all means, if you're taking him at the 1-2 turn, fine, because you're going to get him playing every game. We'll knock on all the wood in the area that he doesn't catch an injury, but he is the Iron Man of the NBA right now, especially on the wing. And so it's a little bit high for me. I have him at 18 right now in my rankings. And of course, like, deviating from the rankings is something I do every single draft to try to change things up. But I don't know, man. I'm taking the upside of an old Kevin Durant over McCall Bridges every single time because he's just statistically, he's going to beat him out every time that he's on the court. And so in this best ball format, like 12 is just a little bit too high for me for McCall Bridges. And I think Julius Randle's like kind of the same thing. Like, not going to miss games, going to be out there. Tibbs is going to run him for big minutes, but I don't think I can get there over KD and Siakam and like even like LaMelo and Dame and Trae, who you took. Like that is, I think it's two reaches there for who was that DRO 907 in the 12 spot.
That I'm actually looking at that roster right now too, and I have like a real love-hate with it because like starting Bridges, Randall, and then back-to-back bigs of Bam and Mobley, but then he goes Maxey, then he gets Maxey there. I like that. And then Ivy, White, Mathurin. Yeah. Hey, what about sorry, real quick. We're just talking about Trae. I was actually close to taking LaMelo over Trae and going guard. I kind of like LaMelo over Dame this year too, even though I still feel like Dame's going to be good. I feel like Dame might be more efficient this year, but it's going to be hard for Dame to surpass like the numbers that he was doing in Portland on this Milwaukee team, just because you've more mouths to feed, right?
Yeah, I mean, Dame is the 1B, until we see otherwise. Giannis is still the guy in this offense, and so again, I have LaMelo over Trae right now in my rankings. I am notoriously a LaMelo stan, if you will. I was taking him. I think I had him like 7 or 8 overall last year, and obviously injury plagued season, and then gets shut down at the end. So I would LaMelo over Trae right now, just in general, right? And again, we have to differentiate when we're drafting 150 times here,
right.
But yeah, it would be Dame and LaMelo slightly over Trae for me if I'm just looking at what I've got in my ranks at the moment. But let's see. I went SGA, LeBron, Scotty, Cade, Chet. I like the start. Bradley Beal, that is like no more than my third Bradley Beal share here this year as the third fiddle. in Phoenix. I'm warming up to Tobias Harris and Tyrese Maxey even more than I already was with the James Harden question mark. I like Jakob Poeltl. Toronto gave up a first for him last year. He is a good fantasy producer at the big position. And then Wendell Carter Jr. taking the chance on Draymond, Markelle Fultz. I still think the most solid piece of that jam-packed Orlando backcourt. Who do you think? Because I think it is extremely unlikely that they end up after the trade deadline with these same 4 guards in the backcourt. Who do you think gets shipped out? Because it's not Anthony Black, of course, but somebody.
No. I think if they're trying to get a real piece, Jalen Suggs gets moved. And if they're just trying to get like an ancillary piece or a pick or something like that, it's Cole Anthony. I think Cole Anthony is most likely to get moved. But if Orlando is in that 7-6 spot as we get close to the trade deadline, and they're like, dude, what if we throw Suggs a pick and something in there and just get like a massive piece? I could see that, but I'm rooting for Suggs, man. I feel like he got hurt and then was like he'd have like a peak game and then a shit game, and it's like I want him to not be a bust just for Orlando's sake. And I love Fultz. I think Fultz is a great pick.
Well, and they just keep drafting guards, man. At some point they've got to move a couple of these pieces they have, and choose a direction, because it can't be the youth movement forever.
No.
I like the way you broke that down. I'm right there with you. I think Cole's the one that if you're just trying to get rid of somebody and clean up that rotation, Cole Anthony's the one that I ship out for, maybe 2 or 3 second rounders or something like that. But if you're trying to bring something back, Jalen Suggs is the guy with the draft capital and the upside probably to do so. Real quick before we get out of here, UNC, let's see if we can roast him a little bit. Typically can't. He's a sharp guy. And I just noticed that he got Kyrie at 4.3.
Wow.
So I think this is going to be a pretty good team. Halliburton, Kyrie, and Scoot.
Man,
with Kevin Durant and Paul George. Yeah, and then Jeremy Grant, which I don't hate getting pieces of any of these Portland guys.
No, me neither. I mean, they're going to play Grant. They're going to play him.
I mean, is he the highest paid player on that team now?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. By like
right?
Well, what was Aiton Steele? I forget what Aiton Steele was.
But that's right. Let's see.
Either way.
I mean, I like the Grant pick. Then Gobert, Jarrett Allen. So you're getting just kind of high floor guys there at your big spot. Denny. He grabs Amon Thompson as well. So maybe the best guard room in this draft. Jarris Walker, Malik Monk, Bobby Portis, Naz Reid. You got Portis and Naz Reid, guys that can really pop for you if Giannis goes out, if Kat or Rudy Gobert is out. So kind of handcuffing Rudy there with Naz.
I like that.
And then he grabs Taylor Hendricks in the last round. So UNC, it's like you've done this a couple of times, buddy.
Yeah. That pisses me off a little bit.
Let's see. Brackenridge, good draft. I appreciate you joining in. Brackenridge was a blast. Before we get out of here, current Trailblazers contracts. You were right. DeAndre Ayton, 32.5 this year. So, hey, you got to get to that salary floor. So you got to pay somebody.
That's right.
Jeremy Grant, 27.5. Anthony Simons, 24. I forgot that he had gotten paid.
I forgot too.
There you go. I see UNC in here. GG's to you, sir. And appreciate everybody tuning in. Before we get out of here, Mike, I know we're going to go hop on your stream over there at Team Hold at the top of the hour. So if you guys want to get another draft in here on this Friday afternoon, definitely come join us over there. But Mike, before we get out of here, let the people know what you got going on, where they can find you.
Yeah, I actually just dropped a link into the chat too, just so nice. for our show that's happening at 3. But yeah, go find us over at Team Hold Live. You can you search Team Hold on YouTube, you'll find it, but it's at Team Hold Live. We do a daily show Monday through Friday, just at 9 a.m., just kind of all things NBA. Every Friday at 3, we're doing an underdog show. And right now focusing on the double dribble, but then eventually start doing the dailies too, which have you messed with the dailies?
Not as much, but I see you guys I see you doing it on the football side as well.
Yeah.
So it looks like a blast.
I started doing it in with John Jackson got me into it. I started doing it in April and like banked immediately. And so
really?
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, so now I think I've like figured it out. But I have enjoyed that far more than like building up a salary cap lineup in like FanDuel or DraftKings. So I'm excited to like really hit that hard for a full season this year. So we'll have plenty of content around that. But yeah, come check us out over at Team Hold.
Absolutely. Well, we will see you guys in about 50 minutes or so over there on that Team Hold stream. I will tweet out that link as well. I will drop it in the FTN NBA Discord channel. once again, appreciate all of you for joining us. Shout out to Mike for joining us too. His first time in the FTN universe. Yeah, no doubt, man. And hopefully we'll have you back again soon. Back next Friday. Another guest, another live stream draft. Hope to see you all here. Appreciate you tuning in. Goodbye.